views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Bronxnet or the program underwriters.
Good morning. So happy to see everyone this month. Some people I saw last week, that's why I get confused. Okay, so let's get started. I will start out with introductions as we normally do. My name is Marika Scott McFadden. I'm the Deputy Borough President in the Bronx. And
Tom Lacanian, Director of Community Boards.
Gilberto Alvarado, Community. Oh, perfect, thank you. Gilberto Alvarado, Community Liaison for Councilmember Diana Ayala.
Ron Jordan, Councilmember Richie Torres' office.
Good morning. Jeffrey Velasquez, Councilmember Vanessa Gibson's office.
Good morning, Shannon Knotts, Deputy Chief of Staff, Councilman Salamanca's office.
Bill Hall, Chair Board 12.
Mohammed Majumdar, First Bike Chair, Board 9.
Rosemary Ginty, Chair, Community Board 8.
Jean Hill, Chair, Community Board 7.
John Dudley, District Manager, Bronx Community Board number 3.
Roberto Crespo, Chair, Board 2. Josh Rodriguez, Planning Board number 1.
Morning, Cedric Lofton, District Manager, Board 1.
Good morning, Ralph Acevedo, District Manager, Board 2.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Brown. I'm District Manager, Board 5.
Good morning, Aisha Bravo, District Manager, Community Board 7.
Good morning, Kira Gannon, District Manager, Community Board 8.
Morning, James Rouse, Director of Planning and Development for the Borough President.
Good morning, Marisol Halpern at the Bronx Borough President.
Introduce yourself.
Cory Johnson from Center for New York City Neighborhoods.
Hello, Rosabelle Tavares from the Center for New York City Neighborhoods.
Good morning, Rebecca Haywood from the City Department of Transportation.
Luke De Palma from MTA New York City Transit, Government Relations.
Kate Contino from MTA New York City Transit, Government and Community Relations.
Sarah Weiss from MTA New York City Transit, Operations Planning.
Doris Alcantara, New York City Department of Transportation.
Deirdre Parker, MTA New York City Transit, Government and Community Relations.
Leah Flax, MTA New York City Transit, Government and Community Relations.
Jessica Signorella, New York City Transit, Operations Planning.
Good morning, Jackie Carter, New York City Transit, Government and Community Relations. Good morning.
Is it on? Yeah. Good morning, Erica Peralta Downing, New York City Department of Health.
Good morning, Kajari Chaudhary, New York City Commission on Human Rights, Bronx Director.
Good morning, Valerie Davis O'Neill, New York City Parks.
Again, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And just to jump right in, pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place here today, Wednesday, September 5th, 2018, starting at 9:15-ish at 851 Grand Concourse Rotunda. And we're just going to jump in, and we'll have our first presentation, Fast Forward, the Bronx Bus Network Redesign. So we're going to ask the presenters to come up. We're having Ms. Jessica Signorella, Acting Manager of Bus Network Redesign, Bus Service Planning, and Mr. Doran. Okay, so he's not here. Great. I messed up his name. Don't tell him. And our Bronx fave, Assistant Director Jacqueline Carter, Governmental and Community Relations, MTA, New York City Transit. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Good morning, everyone. It is still summer, so I'm not going to say how your summer was, because you know it's still hot. But for those who I have not met officially, my name is Jackie Carter. I am the Assistant Director, Government Community Relations. Some of you also know my colleague, Deirdre Parker. She's here. Miss Rosemary. Deirdre's here. And I really want to thank Madam Deputy Borough President, the board chairs, the community board district managers, and the representative, all the elected officials for coming out today. And I just want you to know we have something very exciting to show you today. I just want to give you just a brief introduction on what you're going to see, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jessica. In May 2018, our newly appointed New York City Transit President, Andy Byford, introduced a comprehensive vision to provide a world-class transit system for the world's greatest city, which you all know is New York City. We call it Fast Forward. The Fast Forward plan is to modernize the New York City Transit. And I can tell you that there is actually 4 equal priorities. All this I'm telling you is going to be on our website, which you're going to see at the end of the presentation. There is actually 4 equal priorities that's part of the Fast Forward. One is to transform the subway system. The second one is to reimagine the bus network. Third one, accelerate accessibility. The fourth one, engage and empower employees. I'm very happy to say that today we're going to focus on number 2, which is imagine the bus network. We started in Staten Island. We were able to redesign the express buses in Staten Island. Then President Byford said, we got to come to the Bronx. And that's why we're here today. We want to show you exactly what he has in mind. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I also wanted to introduce the head of all of the redesigns, Sarah Weiss, with New York City Transit. Just to build off of what Jackie said, there's the 4 priorities that she just mentioned, as well as 3 foundations that the Fast Forward plan focuses on and is built on. Those are agility and accountability, safety, security, and resilience, and customer service and communication. So to first answer the question, what does reimagining a bus network really include? It's very much a blank slate approach where we really look at the entire bus network, all local bus service, limited, select bus, express bus, and we do a complete review of all the service to identify ways we can really rebuild it to meet the needs of today. That includes looking at market and travel trends for now and for the future, and it also includes an analysis of current bus performance and reliability, with the hope of really identifying ways we can expand bus priority and do things to speed up Bronxites' travel times and overall commute times. There's also the idea of introducing more comfortable, environmentally friendly buses to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions with our fleets. And why are we reimagining the network in the Bronx? Most of you all know that we haven't touched the entire network in a kind of comprehensive way in decades upon decades. There's a lot of growth that's been happening in the Bronx. It's really booming here. You have major growth in the industrial, retail, and commercial sectors with major population growth. And while all that growth is happening, bus ridership has been declining. So what we want to do here is find a way to bring it back up and really meet the needs of how folks here move throughout the system. In addition to ridership going down, bus speeds have gone down, with the Bronx having the second slowest bus speeds in all of the city right after Manhattan. And in addition to all those factors, we've seen a historical decline in unemployment rates, as well as a major increase in quality of life in the Bronx. So next, we're just going to give you a snapshot of some statistics about the system, how it functions today. Today, there are 46 local bus routes that includes limited and select bus service, and they carry about 503,000 average weekday customers. In addition, there's 11 express routes that carry about 12,000 average weekday customers. So there's a lot of ridership happening in the Bronx, but we're still seeing that decline with the local bus service. It's gone down 7% just from 2016 to 2017. But on a positive note, we've seen a slight increase in express bus service, with things increasing by about 4% from October 2017 to May. Bus speeds are slower. They've gone down 3%, moving at about 6.9 miles per hour since 2014. So we're seeing a lot of congestion, a lot of slower speeds, and in turn, less folks choosing the system. So this slide here is, how do we get you to a redesigned bus network? How do we get you to a bus network of the 21st century that provides you that world-class service? All of our efforts focus on improving the customer experience. So we want to look at ways we can work directly with New York City Department of Transportation, our partners in this, to expand bus priority and on key corridors make really high-frequency, high-capacity service for customers. We also want to look at ways we can improve stop spacing and speed up customers' travel times as a result of that. In addition, we're looking to streamline routes that might kind of meander and go and circuitous all over the place, maybe the BX10 if you're thinking of a route, and just really make it more efficient and more effective to carry the majority of customers as fast as we can. In addition, we want to examine ways we can improve off-peak service and coverage. This slide here just shows the information sources we plan to use for our complete network redesign. We'll be looking at MetroCard data. That gives us ons and swipes and whatnot, helping us track ridership. We'll be looking at bus time data, which provides us with GPS information about the movements our customers are making. We're going to use New York City Department of Transportation travel data, as well as New York City Department of City Planning demographic and development information. We'll be using in-the-field observations to validate the data we've been provided with and just make sure everything's correct. We'll also be doing survey research. That includes in-the-field intercept surveys that started this morning, actually, as well as an online website that we'll be launching shortly within the next week or two. And public feedback, that's what we really want to talk about with you all today, and just stress that we can't do this process without customers and folks from the public, riders, non-riders, coming in and giving their input and their feedback to what they think is necessary to bring the bus network to today. So this next slide is just a general timeline. We had our project kickoff. We went to the borough president few weeks ago now. We're still in our data collection and research phase, and you'll see on there we have the Borough Service Cabinet presentation. That's what's happening right now. And public workshops are next, and those are really paramount to getting the input we need to make this plan successful. These workshops will basically just ask folks to come in, share their current commute patterns, the things that are really challenging for how they get around in the Bronx and leaving the Bronx, and what they think would be really beneficial and encourage them to take transit more, and what kind of things we could do to improve it. You'll see the next thing that we would do after the workshops is share our existing conditions report. That would be released in very late fall, and it would give you a look at all of the demographic trends, population and employment, growth that you've seen, information on our current bus system and the performance and reliability that we said we would be analyzing. And from that existing conditions report, we would build a draft plan that would include a very draft view of the network that we would foresee it being. But right now, we don't have anything drawn. We don't have any preemptive ideas about what we want the network to look like. We really want to get that input from the customers. And you can see if you continue looking at the timeline, by summer of 2019, we'll say late summer, we'll be doing our final rounds of public outreach and really bringing that final plan to folks. So these are the upcoming workshops in September. Community Board 12 might have heard from us already. We'll be going there first on Thursday the 20th. Next, we'll be going to the Metropolitan College of New York on Thursday, September 27th. And I'm going to go through these because we'll have something for you after this. In October, we go to Monroe College, Kings Hall, October 3rd. River Bay Corporation and Co-op City, October 9th. New York City Health and Hospitals, Jacoby, October 15th. And Christchurch, Riverdale, October 18th. That's the end of our presentation, so I'll turn it over now.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Before we continue, does everyone have a copy of this presentation? If you don't, could you hold up your hand and we'll make sure that you receive a copy. Everyone has a copy. Anyone needs a copy of this presentation? If someone from our staff can just make sure that everyone has one. Everyone has one? We're going to leave extra copies at the table for you. We also have copies of that slide you saw of the workshops, and what we would like, if the community boards can actually post them in their boards. So my colleague is going to be handing it out. It looks like that. That's my colleague Kate over there. She's going to hand it out to the community boards, and we also have copies for the elected officials. If you can post them. Now, the whole idea, as you heard from Jessica said, we need your help. We need for you to make sure that your constituents get to these workshops. There's at least 6. So they can go to as many as they need to go to. They're going to be experts there. All the questions, concerns, emails, suggestions that you have always sent Deirdre and I, this is going to be your opportunity of letting these people know. It's a matter of a route. It could be a bus stop. It could be a suggestion. Any question, concern that you can possibly think, we really want to encourage you to have your constituents come to these workshops. These workshops are very, very important. And as this being a borough-wide, not just a route specific, we need to really have everyone come. Madam Deputy Borough President.
Thank you again for that presentation. I just want to give a couple of seconds for everyone to settle. I predict that we have a few suggestions from our community boards and elected officials, so I just want to give a couple of seconds, let everything settle, and open the floor to questions. remembering that we want to be specific. We want to offer specific information to the MTA in order to drive this public information period. So who's first? Oh, Bill? Oh, I can't see. Oh, hi. Mr. Brown. Just grab a microphone so you can be heard. Right in front of you.
All right. Good morning. Thank you for a very exciting presentation and initiative. My name is Ken Brown. I'm the district manager of Board 5. In Board 4 and 5, we just did a very substantial rezoning, and there's going to be what my board feels to be significant impacts on transit because of this burgeoning development. How do we get design workshops added to our district? That's one thing for upcoming public presentations. That's one. The other one is, if I'm not wrong, my understanding is that the threshold to consider adding bus service, additional bus service, is 5% over current ridership. And if that's the case...
Sarah? You have to come to the mic so they can hear what you're saying.
I assume you're asking about how to increase the frequency on an existing route, right?
Or add capacity, yes.
Right, so we have guidelines that are approved by the MTA board, which basically set how many people should be on a route by the half hour, and it varies depending on time of day and depending on the frequency of the route. So it's basically, is what we try to do is have a full, they can be summed up as we try to have a full bus with some standings during rush hour. During off-peak hours, we try to have everyone should be able to have a seat, however. So we do look at these on a regular basis. We do make changes about 4 times a year to the frequency. This network redesign that Jessica's talking about, however, is outside of that. It's more looking at, do these routes really go where people want them to go? Are these serving a need? Is there a better way to get people from point A to point B, especially in cases where we're seeing a lot of transfers between routes? Is there a more direct way to do this? Does this route slow down to loop through what used to be a major traffic generator, but no longer is? These are the sort of things we'll look at in the course of the network redesign. Meanwhile, we will continue to make adjustments to frequency and running time to make the routes match real-world conditions as well as we possibly can.
And to answer your question in regards to the workshops was selected based on cluster, not really community boards, because you mentioned 4 and 5. It's how the buses are actually clustered. So if you get a chance to look at a Bronx bus map and you really look at the location, you'll see how all the network of buses go to certain locations, and that's why the locations were chosen. We want to be able to hear from your constituent, I got on this bus, I go here, this is what happened. So it had nothing to do with board, it had to do with the location and the clusters and the interconnection of the buses.
Mr. Hall?
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, for selecting us as the first board that you're going to do the presentation. A couple of issues that I have in my area. First of all, I want to ask you, the 503,000 average, that's the number that you have here, is that a daily ride? Is that a weekly ride?
Daily.
Every day, okay.
Every weekday.
I mean, if I get on the bus 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, the bus is packed. It doesn't matter what time, so it's just... what I find, though, in my area is that we'll wait and wait and wait for a bus, and then 3 buses wind up showing up at the same time. So I think there's a scheduling issue that we need to kind of work out. The other
What
issue
bus line are you
that
referring
I
to?
find is on the handicap. If you have a wheelchair person, they can really hold up the line in terms of getting on the bus. Of course, we have to accommodate them. And I was going to suggest possibly maybe having a dedicated wheelchair bus, if that's possible, or dedicated buses that are for wheelchairs, because that one wheelchair person can really make the difference. And what happens, that driver, what he does is he tells the other passengers to go in the back, which is a violation. So I'm just saying this is what happens realistically in our area. The other issue is that my Metro card, every 3 months I wind up having to change this card. And what they told me was that what's happening is when you place your card into the bus, it eats, that particular bus eats the Metro card, and you wind up having to get that new Metro card, which is inconvenient. And for me, it's been every 3 months, every 2 or 3 months. So I just wanted to make those points.
You don't want to see my card.
We deal with the same Metro Card challenge.
But everything that you said, I want to hear it on the 20th.
Okay.
Everything that you said.
Okay.
What you were describing was the challenge of bus bunching. Yeah, and that's something we're going to be looking at closely because it's a major issue in the Bronx and the city.
And when I see you on the 20th, I'll give you my secret on how we preserve these cards.
Okay, I need that.
It's called Scotch tape.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to be specific about the bus line that you're referring to?
39, 41, and sometimes the 30.
Yep.
Number 30. Those are the buses in my area. 28.
And just in terms of, to add on, ADA compliance in terms of like the wheelchair buses. Compliance would be that you can get on the bus and someone else who is in a wheelchair or something like that can also get on the same bus. So it's not a special accommodation. Otherwise, it's not.
Yeah, I was just
compliant.
wondering if we could work something out so it'll be a little simpler because it really gets complicated in terms. If you have 2 wheelchairs,
Yeah, I can
it really
imagine.
gets complicated. So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Ms. Hill.
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank you because finally at the Mashula bus stop, we finally have a countdown clock.
In front of Tracy?
In front of Tracy Towers, hallelujah. One of my...
Bus stop in front of Tracy Towers, they need the countdown clock. I'm telling DOT also.
Oh, okay, yes, we do have a countdown clock on both sides of the street, across from Tracy Towers and in front of Tracy Towers. I don't see one for the 28 bus, which is adjacent, and the 28 bus is the slowest bus in creation. I could cook a 7-course meal in the time it arrives. So we need to see why is that particular service so slow in terms of a decrease in ridership. I don't know because I travel the Grand Concourse corridor and there is always jam-packed buses. I don't care what time of day I come out to catch a bus. I don't even know why everybody is wandering around in the middle of the day, but the bus is very crowded at all hours of the day and night. Something that I saw this morning on my way here, right in front of Tracy, we're on the bus and the door closed and the guy was getting ready, the driver was pulling off, and a young man walked up and spit at the door. Why he did that, I have no clue. What built-in safety factors are you going to put into these new redesigns that you're going to do?
Safety factors.
I don't think we have very specific safety factors at the moment, but I think that's what we're looking to hear is the specifics of what's happening on a safety level and security level. Unfortunately, I don't know what specifically we can do to prevent someone from spitting on the bus, but
The next step might be
yeah.
able to attack a driver.
Sure.
Yeah. We do have the plastic barrier for the drivers, but unfortunately I've seen folks reach around that and find their way. But you're right, making the driver safe makes all the customers safe because then nothing happens when they're operating the bus. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to bring that back.
Mr. Dudley, you had a question? And after you.
Yeah, thanks, Amelia. Jackie, you know, this is commendable. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for coming to the Borough Board. Just a quick question. I know we mentioned that you have been seeing increases as it relates to the Express, SBS, right? But there have been some decreases. You said about 7% decreases on the local routes, right? One question is, where do you attribute, in other words, the decreases that have been evident with respect to use on local routes? How are potential customers, what alternative methods of transportation are they using? Is it subway? Is it Uber? Is it just, that's one thing. And then secondly, I just wanted to ask, there's been a lot of residential affordable housing development, right, that we've seen, particularly in community boards 1, 3, as we've experienced a major resurgence and renaissance as a community just with respect to housing development. Is there any relationship that you have, or is there any communication that you have with the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development or any other state or federal agencies that maintain data on residential, commercial units that are being produced, that are coming online, so we can see where the population trends are and where prospective increased utilization of surface transit might come from? So it's just those two issues.
Your first question, just because of challenge of hearing.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Well, your first question was about the decline in ridership and where have those lost riders gone?
Exactly.
I would say that folks switched to for-hire vehicles. That's been pretty common throughout, I think, all boroughs. As well as, yeah, I think there is a switch to the subway that's happening. But to say Bronx ridership, although there's been that decrease, is still incredibly strong. And weekday, Saturday, Sunday, people are using this system. And regarding coordinating with the state or federal agency, you want to know if we get data?
Yeah. Are you using data? Are you accessing data in terms of residential growth?
Not directly from Housing Preservation and Development, but we get demographic, population, and employment information from the U.S. Census, American Community Surveys. And we've gotten information from the Department of City Planning about where new developments are occurring within the Bronx, so that we can be sure that we're not missing any opportunities to serve those folks and really provide them with transit access.
So census data and then data from the Department of City Planning with respect to population growth and what areas they're occurring. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Jackie. I see that a concern has been that buses are going slower. That means that when you make your plan, there's a possibility you're going to put a requirement from the drivers to make sure they're going at a certain speed per block, I guess. Am I correct?
The challenge is that our drivers typically end up going slower than a standard speed because of the congestion. I think if anything, they'd like to go faster and meet that 25 miles per hour, but it's just not possible here in the Bronx or really any of the boroughs. I mean, the fastest speeds that we saw citywide were in Staten Island, but if you think about the way that borough is so different from the other four, there's a reason behind that. Overall, the congestion and, the double parking, the construction, blocking a bus stop, all those factors really prevent, unless there's dedicated bus lanes and right-of-way without folks blocking those lanes, it's pretty hard to get them to go anywhere near 25 miles per hour. You were asking about going faster.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So my concern is if there's a requirement for possibly drivers to get to a certain speed. Right now, even at going slow, some of your buses are blocking intersections to try and meet whatever they're required to drive right now and creating traffic jams. For instance, on the 6th line, the 5 line, the 19 on Westchester Southern Boulevard, and the 5 on Bruckner, and the 17 on Prospect going towards Westchester Avenue. And this is what's being experienced. And so if you're going to put a requirement, what's going to stop the drivers from trying to inch up a little bit faster, a little bit more, a little bit more?
So we don't have a speed requirement for them, but they do have a running time they're supposed to meet from one time point to the next, which is what you're referring to, why there would be that motivation to go faster. As far as I know, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, they shouldn't be blocking the box like you're referring to. The one thing I guess I would point out is they're not the only culprits, right? All vehicles are doing that. It just happens that the buses are larger and longer, so they will block more cars from going through.
Other vehicles we can handle because we can always tell PD.
Yeah.
Okay, but who's going to tell MTA drivers that they're doing something wrong that's not beneficial to the community?
We've taken note of what you're saying.
It's what we normally do. You let me know, and I do let Bronx Road Operation know.
Thank you.
To answer his question, I'm very happy that I'm able to work with the boards all the time. That's one of the things I do. When you do see that, and I know that on the 5 and the 6 and the 19 and the 17 and your board, many other boards, it happens all the time. We are going to get more proactive. Besides us talking to your constituents, we are going to be talking to the bus road operations supervisors. We are going to be talking to bus operators, so it's not just you. We're going to be talking to everyone. We are going to bring these concerns back to them. That's why I always appreciate when you give it to me, because we are going to give it to them. We are going to have a dialogue with them. That's part of this plan. So, and this is a one-year plan. This is very aggressive. So continue to feed me that information. We're going to have the dialogue with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Excuse me, Mr. D'Angelo.
Hi. Has road dieting been a factor in the slowing of the bus speed?
Road dieting, when we drop from 3 to 2.
Roads are closed, bike lanes and
Not that I can speak to specifically, but I think my boss Sarah here might have an answer for you.
Certainly with bus speeds, a major factor. Sorry, certainly with bus speeds, a major factor is always what does the road look like. And we've worked with DOT very successfully on several projects such as the BX6, which have truly both sped up buses and made crossing the street safer for pedestrians. And that's an important reason why DOT is a very key partner in this project. And we need to work with them and in order to get these buses moving again.
but it is slowing the bus speed.
Pardon? Sorry, didn't hear that.
So it's often with road diets, let's say, something that may happen is if we're going from 4 lanes to 3, what it is 3 moving lanes and 1 that's maybe bus only dedicated. But most drivers don't respect that, and they'll still continue to use the bus lane unless there's proper enforcement. So that's what we've done in certain areas already. I think we're still not answering what you want to know, though, is do we feel that road diets directly contribute to slow bus speeds? I would say no, because typically they come at some form of a benefit to the bus.
I say that only because I see certain areas of the Bronx where it works very well. I see other areas of the Bronx where it's a disaster. I think before the DOT puts in the dieting program, they should judge the needs of the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
I know you said at the beginning of the presentation that you were working on the bus service first, and then is that the plan and the subway system is next year, or is that the way we're going to work it?
This is definitely a one-year plan, so 2019.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, you know, sometimes some people live in a two-fare zone, and that bus will make an impact on how many riders are in that. The subway will make an impact on how many riders are on that bus. So I'm just wondering, in terms of coordination.
We want to hear that.
Okay.
Anything that you've heard, anything that you've been telling me, been telling Deirdre, this is going to be your time. Everything that you said today, we need to hear it. We definitely need to hear it. Because like I said, there are going to be folks there, they're going to take all this information in, and this is going to be our time to do it. Because you all know I'm Bronx. This is our time to do it. And I really, really want to encourage everyone to please have them come out to these workshops.
James?
Hi, thank you for coming in for your presentation. I just would like you to explain to the cabinet, since we have wonderful DOT staff here and there's going to be coordination, and this plan involves significant infrastructure such as dedicated bus lanes and other potential infrastructure. How does that work into and impact DOT's 5-year capital plan? Is it integrated with it, or will this operate as separate? Because it will require allocation of resources and staff.
Anyone from DOT, please? They can come answer that question. Thank you.
I can also start with the answer. Go ahead, Rebecca. Sorry.
Hi, thank you for the question. So we are working closely with MTA and New York City Transit on this process. I think what the impact will be on the capital plan is something that remains to be seen. We are looking at, in conjunction with this, what we can do for bus priority around the borough, along with our other general work. But with the specifics on the impacts of the capital plan, we can get back to you with some more information on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Lofton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Hi, Jackie. Jackie, about last year this time, we went on a bus tour with MTA, New York City Transit, through the southern portion of our district, basically Port Morris and portions of Melrose. And we talked about extending the 33 bus and actually introducing some new lines, as we now have at least 1,500 to 2,500 new units that are being built down in Port Morris and also covering the Harlem River. So I would assume that what we talked about on our tour and all the sites that we saw, also around 132nd Street, would be incorporated into this plan. And when we actually do have the plan, what is the time frame for implementation, particularly with our service on the other side of the Bruckner of Board 1?
I don't have a specific date for you for implementation for that location, but anything that comes about in the network redesign won't be implemented until we kind of purposely left that part blank here, or left out the implementation phase, because we know that that takes time, and we don't want to leave a date that's locked in that prevents us from making the right improvements and changes in response to y'all's feedback. So.
Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had these posters in Spanish and any other languages, and also if we could get an electronic version so we can send it out in our email blast.
We're definitely going to be email blasting it to the community boards and also to the elected officials. We'll double check in the Spanish. And I can tell you that this actual information that we gave you is going to be on our website later today, including a press release letting them know we were here. You have your posters, and you notice that Jessica mentioned surveys that are going to be online. That's scheduled. Kate, when is the survey again?
Sometime next week, most likely.
There you go.
Yeah. And we're doing in-person surveys starting today. So you'll see our folks out and about. And I know she said we'll get back to you, but I'm almost certain that those posters are being made in Spanish as well.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Did you have a question, George? Excellent. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for being with us today. We look forward to this new redesign.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you.
And moving right along with Bronx Community Energy Engagement Program, a presentation by Cory Johnson and Rosie Tavares, Sustainable and Resiliency Outreach Associates, Center for New York City Neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. So my name is Cory Johnson, and this is my colleague, Rosie Tavares. And we are Sustainability and Resiliency Outreach Associates at the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, as said. And we will be speaking with you today about the Center's Sustainability and Resiliency Programs. So for our agenda today, we will begin with our mission at the Center. Then we will discuss the Community Energy Engagement Program, as well as the Flood Help NY program. The problems that led to the creation of each program, the program benefits, eligibility requirements, and the processes for each. If you could please hold your questions till the end, we have a lot of time for the questions. So our mission at the Center is to promote affordable home ownership. We have several areas that we focus on, including mortgage help, foreclosure, coastal communities, scam prevention, as well as rehabs and retrofits. Today we'll be speaking about our programs under coastal communities and rehabs and retrofits. Part of our mission in coastal communities is to mitigate the risk and effects of flooding. So New York City has 500 miles of coastline, and in the instance of a storm at the magnitude of Sandy, this is what the New York City coastline in the Bronx would look like in the year 2100. This also raises environmental justice concerns because often the communities that are hardest hit are the least equipped to respond. So in speaking of environmental justice concerns, we also have the issue of heat-related deaths here in the Bronx and throughout New York City. Heat waves are the deadliest form of extreme weather, and this map shows the areas in New York City where populations are the most vulnerable to heat-related deaths. Between 2000 and 2010, nearly 50% of heat-related deaths were Black Americans, despite only making up 25% of the city's population. Lastly, we're looking to address inefficiency in buildings. So, majority of New York City buildings are inefficient, and in this case, we are talking about how well the building systems work given the smallest amount of electricity or energy. Our goals are also to decrease energy burden, especially among our low to moderate income New Yorkers. Energy burden is the amount of household income spent on utility bills, and because LMI households typically occupy older homes, they end up paying higher utility bills. Bronx residents are some of the most energy burdened in New York City, devoting 9.2% of income towards energy bills as opposed to 1 to 2% for the rest of the city. To help fix this inequality, we are reaching out to Bronx organizations to collaborate on energy efficiency events and education to help residents to lower bills and cost burden. So now I will pass it over to Rosie to talk about our sustainability programs.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Cory. She mentioned I'm going to go into our sustainability programs. So at the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, we created our sustainability programs in order to give access to all New York City residents to energy efficiency programs to help them both lower their utility bills as well as make their homes more comfortable. And the way we do this is through the Community Energy Engagement Program, which is funded by the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. And basically what the program does is provide access to everyone across the state to energy efficiency programs to help them reduce their energy waste, as well as give them access to affordable renewable energy. The way the program connects to New York City folks is through community energy advisors such as Cory and myself. And basically our role is to connect New York City residents to resources and networks to provide cost-saving opportunities in the field of energy efficiency. So what someone can expect when they communicate with a community energy advisor such as ourselves is first we identify their needs and goals in terms of their energy waste and their bills, utility bills to be specific. And from there, we recommend programs and services that they may be eligible for that also coincide with their interests and needs. From there, we connect them to qualifying contractors that best suit their needs to help them implement those energy efficiency projects and ultimately reach those goals that we initially spoke about. And the benefit that they incur by going through the process with us is that we're there from initial contact to the final implementation of the energy efficient retrofit. So we're there to make sure that everything goes smoothly and that all their needs are met. And we also follow up with them after the project is completed to see what their energy savings are looking like and the condition of the home. So our primary focus in this program are 1 to 4 family homes, not only because as the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, our expertise lies in this specific demographic, but because historically multifamily and commercial buildings have been the primary focus of all energy efficiency programs across both New York and New York City. And this is because they account for 45% of the city's energy use. And since the city and the state have implemented policies to curb our greenhouse gas emissions, most of the services and focus have gone to that sector. So this is where we're here to fill in the gap and make sure that that demographic, that residential home, that 1 to 4 family unit home also has access to energy efficiency programs because they make up 80% of our housing stock. So not only are there few energy efficiency programs out there for 1 to 4 family homes, but specifically in New York City, even those energy efficiency programs for that demographic, a lot of New York cities aren't really reaping those benefits. NYSERDA, which is one of our funders, their 1 to 4 unit retrofits, only 1.73% of those have taken place in New York City. So we're here to fill that gap and make sure that that demographic is served. So our other main focus is the low to moderate income population. And as Cory mentioned before, they're the ones that are confronted with a huge energy cost burden. So, and this is mainly because this population tends to live in older housing stocks, older buildings that are not as well maintained and are usually energy inefficient. So even though they're likely to use less energy than a non-low to moderate income household, they end up paying the same amount. Which is why in 1996, the New York State Public Service Commission implemented the Systems Benefit Charge. So basically anyone who's a customer of Con Edison or National Grid is paying a small systems benefit charge in order to fund these energy efficiency programs that are there to help this vulnerable demographic. So this is why we encourage everyone to really participate in this program because most people are already paying into it and funding it. And specifically in New York City as the highest population region in New York, but we're getting so few of those services, as I stated previously. So the program eligibility is very wide. Again, it's across New York State, but we're here specifically to serve New York City, the Bronx. Both Cory and I are here to serve the Bronx. Although our focus and our expertise are homeowners, we do have services available for renters. And we also connect multifamily building owners as well as small businesses to all our partners in the field of energy efficiency. So we aim to help anyone and everyone. So this is what the program process might look like, but as I mentioned, our demographic is really diverse. We aim to serve everyone. So this track will look different for everyone depending on the context of their home, of their needs, and their specific goals. We really want to tailor the process to best suit them. But for the most part, the way it works is they sign up with a community energy advisor, such as Cory and myself in the Bronx, and then we connect them to an assessment in order to determine where their home is wasting energy and what they can do to remedy those inefficiencies. They circle back with us, and we discover any financing option to help them fund those energy projects. And finally, with the ultimate goal of implementing an energy efficiency project that will help them lower their utility bills and make their home more comfortable. So a little bit about the home energy assessment. For the most part, it's free for most homeowners, depending on income, or it's reduced costs. And it's conducted by a trained contractor who provides an in-depth analysis, a top-to-bottom look of the home, and they specify where the home is wasting energy and all the different projects that can be implemented in order to remedy those inefficiencies. And they do this through a personalized report where they give detailed recommendations of improvements for the home, as well as where the home can gain in terms of energy efficiency. Another benefit of that home assessment is that those contractors also provide safety hazard and identify health issues. So they look for lead, asbestos, gas leaks, and mold that the homeowner might not be aware of. And they pinpoint that and make sure that they know to remediate those issues because, again, they're very dangerous and can put those families' homes' health at risk. So as I mentioned, those customers circle back with us, and once they receive the report and see what their priorities are in terms of what projects they should implement, we would create basically a menu of items in terms of grants, rebates, incentives that they may be eligible for in order to fund these energy projects. And we also assist them with counselors who will walk them through the financial options to make sure that they're making the right decisions. So a few examples of what some energy improvements might look like is we can direct people towards rebates to convert to more efficient appliances. There's also rebates available to change into smart thermostat installation. We have grants available as well that can provide free air sealing, installation of walls and attics, which are kind of the key players in terms of reducing energy bills and making a home more comfortable. For anyone who has gas, who uses oil to heat their homes, we also have programs you can connect them with to help them convert to natural gas. And finally, for anyone interested in renewable energy, we can connect them to options to install solar panels. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Cory, and she's going to talk about our resiliency programs.
Thank you. So the Center's resiliency programs provide residents in high-risk flood zones with the tools that they need to be prepared for the next flood event. We educate New York City residents on how they can lower their flood insurance rates and make their properties more resistant to future flooding and extreme weather. Our resiliency programs are funded by the Governor's Office for Storm Recovery at the request of New York Rising Committees for 9 neighborhoods. We offer our home resiliency audit program with possible residential sewer back water valve installation and our website, floodhelpny.org. So the problems that we look to address with our program are the increasing risk of flooding due to rising sea levels, potential structural damage, and rising flood insurance rates due to changes in legislation and the expansion of FEMA's flood insurance rate map. So the graphic behind me indicates sea level rise from 1900 through to 2015, and as you can see, it's on a steady incline. So this is FEMA's flood insurance rate map, otherwise known as FIRM, for the Bronx. The yellow areas indicate moderate risk, and the red areas indicate high risk. FIRMs not only speak to the potential risk of flooding, but they also speak to the government-mandated flood insurance purchase requirement. On the left, you see the advisory firms, and on the right, you see current firms. So until new firms are created by FEMA, folks should look to these maps to see what their flood risk and flood insurance purchase requirement could look like. We expect changes to be adopted by 2020. So this is a zoomed-in view of East Bronx waterfront, focusing on Hunts Point, Clayson Point, Parkchester, and Throgs Neck. These neighborhoods make up East Bronx Waterfront New York Rising Committee. Our program was requested by the New York Rising Committees for 9 neighborhoods, each of which decided how they wanted their funds to be allocated. If you know of anyone who is interested in this program, please feel free to refer them to us so that we can update them in the future if our area of service does expand to the Bronx. So lastly, we have our website, Blood Help NY. It was created as a platform for engaging and informing all New York City residents about how they can protect their homes and finances from flooding. The website is available to help people to find their location on the flood map, get a flood insurance estimate, and lower their risk and rate. So folks can contact us here at our phone number and email, and also feel free to sign up for our newsletter to get tips and news on upcoming policy changes.
So if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them now.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your presentation. The deputy just stepped out for one moment. She'll be right back. Any questions, Bobby? And then Bill? And then Ralph.
Excuse me. Good morning. I see that you got an $8,000, that's a grant?
That's a grant.
That's a grant. But if anything exceeds over the 8,000, would it be a loan?
So we have grants. One of our biggest grants is that $8,000 one. That one in particular is called the Assisted Home Performance Energy Grant. It's through NYSERDA, and basically it's for homeowners who income level is about 80% statewide. So in that term, that grant covers 50% of the energy project up to $8,000. But we also have another grant called Empower, which is for renters and homeowners. That's more of a low to moderate income demographic, and that covers up to $7,000, and it's a package service. So that includes installation, replacement of inefficient refrigerators, air sealing, replacement of light bulbs. So that's an all-inclusive free program if the applicant is income eligible. But we do also have low interest loans for people to match the funds of other programs if the grant doesn't fulfill the means necessary to implement the project.
And what would be the maximum interest on those loans?
It depends on their credit and income, but for the most part, I'll get back to you, but they vary between 3% to 7%.
Thank you.
Acevedo.
Testing. Hi, I'm Bill Hoare, Ward 12. I just had a couple of questions for you. You just talked about qualifying contractors. How do you decide who a qualifying contractor is?
So NYSERDA has a list of qualified contractors that they procure. So we use the contractors through NYSERDA.
Okay, and I guess my question was, okay, what is a qualifying contractor? I mean, what criteria?
So basically the contractors that NYSERDA have procured are at the highest, perform at the highest standards of energy efficiency. So they're BPI accredited, and They know most of the latest technology in terms of energy efficiency. That's why they've been put into the fold, because they're supposed to be leaders and experts in the field of energy efficiency.
Okay. Do any of these contractors come from the Bronx?
I believe there are a few that come to the Bronx. So if we have applicants coming from the Bronx, we would probably recommend a local contractor.
Okay.
For ease.
All right, thank you. And you also spoke about insurance rates. Do you guys have any influence over the insurance rates in terms of?
Some representatives up in Congress have
Okay, so
no.
in other words, if they use your program, it doesn't decrease the insurance rates?
So basically, all of that is out of our hands. It's up to Congress. They just renewed the National Flood Insurance Program for another year, so that's being funded. But we can tell you that rates are expected to increase in perpetuity for the near future. So we're here to provide that service so that homeowners aren't overpaying for their flood insurance, since those rates are increasing and subsidies are being removed across the board.
Okay, and one more question on the grants. You have to be, I think you said at 80%, 80% of, I guess, what number does that 80% represent?
It's AMI, the area median income.
Of the area. So each area has a different qualifying
So
issue.
Bronx would have its own
Okay.
Yeah,
chart.
it's based on county, so everything, all of the counties for New York, so Kings, Bronx, etc., it's all under New York, so they have the same AMI throughout the 5 boroughs.
Okay, so we do have a standard New York City AMI.
Yes.
Based on your, okay.
And
Thank
those grants vary, the eligibility from grant to grant. So for that assisted one, it's 80%, but for Empower, it's 60%. But again, we would be there to talk the applicant through
And
what,
to negotiate to get them the best rate.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
to see what best works.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Acevedo?
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Good morning. Information is great. I'm just curious, is a low turnout, right? Not too many people are participating. What are the barriers you're facing? I mean, I think this is a initiative every homeowner or resident should at least see if they qualify for. So there's only 1.73% from the information that you just gave us. So what are the barriers you're facing, and what could we do, to engage homeowners and residents to at least try to apply for this? Thank you.
And because of that startling stat that we gave you, where only 1.73% of NYSERDA's retrofits are taking place in New York City, that is really kind of shocking, especially because of that systems benefit charge that I spoke about. A majority of that comes from New York City. So basically, a lot of those funds are being allocated outside of our area. So this is why the Center for New York City Neighborhoods was subcontracted by NYSERDA in order to provide that outreach for these programs, because clearly there is a deficit in New York City. And also with Cory and I, we want to provide, and the team in general, we want to diversify our team in order to engage all communities. So specifically in terms of languages and our outreach, I speak Spanish, we have a colleague who speaks Arabic, and we're really trying to engage all communities that have been neglected through this program.
And in addition to that, we are conducting energy efficiency workshops. We are planning to do one in November in the South Bronx here. So we're continuing to do outreach as outreach associates for the Center for this program.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Thank you. I'm very crafty. There we go. Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit, or have you discuss a little bit about eligibility and resources available to non-residential consumers. In the handout, you specify that small business owners. What is the threshold for participation in that? And would that include exclusively retail businesses? What about small manufacturing? What's the criteria and resources available for small businesses or business owners?
Well, with our small business owner demographic, we refer them to our partners, Small Business Services of New York City. So they're usually referred out from us as well as multifamily. So we usually hand them off to our partners. Yes.
Right. We would refer them over to the people or the partners with that right expertise to connect them to the services they will be eligible for.
Are there any additional questions, Maris?
A quick question. When you do the assessments and you identify lead and these other hazardous conditions, are there violations or penalties that are assigned to it? Could that be one of the barriers as to why people are not participating? Because usually when they're identified and they're recorded somewhere, there is a potential for a violation if it's not corrected.
Thank you for that question. I would love to clarify that. So the contractors are not inspectors, and all the information that provided is private and for the use of the homeowner. So it's more so they know what to take care of. So that none of that information is going to any organization or any institution outside of that homeowner. So thank you for that question because that has come up, but they're not inspectors, they're contractors. They're there to provide knowledge to the homeowner that they can use on their behalf.
Hi, I have two questions. The first is, can you clarify what qualifies a community energy advisor? The reason I ask that is just because concern about potential predatory actors going out saying, hey, I'll do an assessment for you, come work with me, charge, egregious fees, and all of a sudden they don't earn any benefit.
Well, the programs that the center is providing are free of charge. So we are not charging any egregious fees at all. And if you're, I guess, looking to ask about our specific qualifications, do you mean like the main
Why
qualifications?
are you a
were-
community energy advisor and not me? So what qualifies an organization?
The main reason would be like education and experience. So we both have outreach experience with sustainability issues. So we are community energy advisors.
I'm not sure my question's being quite understood. Center for New York City Neighborhoods is a qualified community energy advisor. Why, as an organization, like what other organizations are qualified? Just so.
So in New York City, only the Center for New York City Neighborhoods
Okay.
are housing community energy advisor, and there's only 4 of us.
Okay.
So we're not talking to Cory, to myself, to Will or Rabia. Don't engage with them. They're not advisors. So it's only 4 of us, and in the Bronx specifically, it's Cory and I who would be providing that service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question regarding Flood Help New York and getting a flood insurance estimate. How is that calculated? Is that something done in-house, or do you have insurance partners that refer to and provide the quote?
So that's all done through our website. So that would be done based on address.
But how is it calculated? Who calculates it? Like how insurance estimates are variable. So is it done in-house? Is it done with State Farm, Geico?
No.
Or
So we have a calculator on our site, floodhelpny.org, and it's an algorithm that was created in-house, and we also outsource experts, mainly our counselors. So through our Flood Help NY program, for the communities that are eligible, people connect with counselors who are experts in flood insurance. So these come from NILAG, which is a law assistance organization. We also have counselors who are experts in flood insurance in the NHS of Brooklyn. So again, these are they don't work in private insurance, but they're very knowledgeable. So they're the ones, in conjunction with them, we created this calculator so that people can easily get an idea of how much they should be paying.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Melford.
Good morning. Have you all considered going to schools and doing workshops there? Realistically, most of the kids in the public schools now at some point will be either renters or homeowners. And realistically, to change the statistic of having properties in New York City only making up almost 2% of those taking advantage, I think educating kids now, so when they do become renters and homeowners, will be thinking about resiliency and sustainability and maybe more inclined to take advantage of the workshops that you're providing. And even maybe visiting some of the local schools, the Hostos, Lehman, BCC, educating college students, because for the most part, they may be renting now, and they may be able to educate their landlords, their homeowners, maybe in some instances their parents, to take advantage of some of these programs and rebates that are out there that, unfortunately, New York City isn't taking big advantage of.
Yes, actually, as far as schools, we've interacted with some of the parent coordinators. So PTAs is the main thing that we've touched the surface with, because we've been focusing more on the parents rather than the kids. But that's a great point that you bring up. And also with college kids, that's also a great point that you bring up, so thank you for that. But mainly we've been focusing on the parents of the schools.
But thank you for the recommendations. Again, we're outreach associates and we're just getting into the Bronx, and we really want to have the opportunity to speak to anyone and everyone who's willing to listen, because there are a lot of grants and funds out there to really improve people's homes. And aside from that, we are trying to organize various workshops just to teach people simple tricks and tips that can really go a long way in bettering their homes and making their homes more comfortable. So however you guys can help us and connect us, we would really appreciate it.
Mr. Melford, can you introduce yourself and then have your second question?
Hi, I'm Brian Melford, Budget Director for Councilmember King. I also live in Community Board 12. You had mentioned that you have a workshop in November in the South Bronx. Have you considered doing one for the North Bronx, where I think the last big housing stock of residential properties are, whether it be Riverdale or the rest of the Northeast Bronx?
Yeah, we will definitely consider that. I think because we have only planned one, the first one that we wanted to focus on was South Bronx, because it is quite burdened in terms of energy cost burden. So definitely we'll consider the North Bronx. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
Hi, Bill Hall, Board 12. We have a large home ownership in our community, and we'd like to invite you to Board 12 to give a presentation sometime this fall, November, December, or January, whenever your schedule permits. Okay?
Thank you. We would love to.
Thank you.
And we're open to present at any board meeting, any community meeting that you'd like. You can connect with us. We're here to provide the service and information to your community.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Well, at this time, that'll end our presentations. I'll open the floor for any announcements that anyone has from the audience, any board members who would like to make an announcement. Mr. Hall.
Hi, Bill Hall, Board 12. Tomorrow we begin our budget consultations. I hope to see all of you there. We're going to have 3 consultations, 2 in September, 1 in October. So hope to see you there tomorrow. We're going to start at 9:30. Thank you.
I will be there.
It's the month of September is National Childhood Obesity Month, and in an effort to kind of curtail the conversation on how we can educate our next generation to take better care of their bodies, Councilmember King has started a challenge where we're asking families to drink water every day for the month of September. We're also stepping it up by asking people to drink a gallon of water for the month of September every day. It is not the easiest challenge, but realistically, it does bring up a conversation as to how much sugar is in some of the drinks that we're consuming. And unfortunately, the Bronx has the highest rate of childhood diabetes and childhood obesity. So in an effort to kind of bring awareness to that and also encouraging families to do better by what they consume by drinking, we're asking people to drink more water and to cut out the sugary beverages, the sodas, and the things that have a lot of high fructose corn syrup, which can lead to childhood diabetes. We have 2 hashtags also, hashtag NYC Drink Water and hashtag Water the New Soda.
Water the new soda.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Kajuri Chaudhary from the New York City Commission on Human Rights. So tomorrow, September 6th, the NYC Stop Sexual Harassment Act goes into effect. One of the provisions of the law is that all places of employment, irrespective of the number of employees, are to post these 2 notices, one in English and one in Spanish, at places which is visible to all employees. So I have some posters with me in English and Spanish for the community boards, and they're also available on our website, nyc.gov/human rights. So I will distribute some now, and please make sure that these are posted to be in compliance with the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So the Borough President's Office will be hosting a September 11th remembrance event on September 14th at the Lou Gehrig Plaza right outside of the office building here on 161st Street and Grand Concourse. And we welcome everyone to come and for obvious reasons to remember those fallen in the towers. And it will be noon, starting at noon. Okay. Seeing no more questions or comments, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. But before I do, I would like to remind the district managers that we will have you hold back for a little more conversation. So thank you all for coming, as usual, and you are dismissed.